Welcome back, everyone. Today I wanted to break down Starship Troopers Extermination, whether it's actually worth buying another early access horde shooter or not. So like all my other reviews, we'll go over the good stuff and then the bad stuff and how it all adds up with how I personally feel about it. So lighting this off, we'll start with some of the good and something more unexpected than anything else. I really wasn't expecting anything going into this other than my wallet missing 25 more dollars, but in the same way that my dad bought me the movie DVD and the VHS years ago, we both accepted our money was gone. I just didn't expect the game to deliver this campiness of the first movie in such an epic way. It's something I never even thought I would be able to imagine I could play, and it's just insanely fun to be able to experience those movie moments with the bugs swarming an outpost. It really just brought me back to my childhood and made me feel so nostalgic just playing this game. They really captured it almost perfectly, and when things start falling apart, it just gets so stressful and it comes down to that last stand of saving the refinery no matter the cost. And the sprint to the ship is almost always the greatest thing that even happens in the entire match. The RP value you get is just ridiculous. It made me have way more fun and just reminded me of when I played the Squad Starship Troopers mod. I think the first 2 to 3 days of this was just a meme RP from the movies, and I really think that those player interactions are what's going to keep people playing and make it really special. But the game itself was surprisingly fun to play once you got your controls set up properly. Pre that, it is a little bit clunky, but you really do end up feeling like a trooper from the movie when the bugs just run you down and tear you apart. And they did confirm they're adding dismemberment in the future, so that'll be something really cool when it comes through. For now, though, each class does have really limited weapons, and the base rifle really does immerse you into doing no damage and just letting you RP as the dead trooper you were really meant to be. But all the other weapons feel like they're a massive upgrade and actually provide a role in the lobby. And the carbine upgrade is basically just an SMG, but if you buff it with a scanner, it really starts melting everything on the screen, even on veteran at like close to medium range. And the battle rifle is just ridiculously good once you get used to hip firing with it. It has a lot more range before the fall off damage comes into play, and it really starts letting you take those shooty boys out. But then things fell off when I started playing Bastion. I tried that big LMG out and it was pretty terrible until I got the extra magazine. I think it'll probably feel a little bit better once you get to level 20 and you get the bonus ammo, but it's just a really slow grind to get there overall, and Bastion just does not feel good. I personally really prefer the other two classes, and it just isn't my priority right now. I do like the ability to put the barricades out so it doesn't instantly die, but again, that XP grind is just so slow by comparison to the other two, and it really needs to have some sort of support EXP in its shield wall to help it level faster, because Medic is just ridiculously fun, and it's definitely the fastest to level, and it gets the battle rifle at level 2, letting you just start hard carrying and having the most fun just after you finish your first game, and it makes that run to the dropship not nearly as bad because even more troopers can get out, and all of the classes do get noticeably stronger once you're a higher level and can round your build out. Once people start getting scans and bonus ammo, it really just starts letting you hold the line and, more importantly, see things. And when you start getting those gas and fire grenades, you start racking up insane amounts of kills. There's a lot of times where they just deny a whole area and make it super easy to clutch a tough moment. And being able to see the bugs through all that chaos really is probably the most valuable thing you can take. And overall, I do kind of like the current progression of the characters, and once they expand on it, it will actually be really, really good. It does suck that the weapons are limited for now, but that will get better over time. The main thing I did see complaints about was EXP, but I really think Bastion is the only slow one. If you play on normal, you can level up pretty quickly in the AAS mode, even if you have a bad game. You always get like 650 EXP, as long as most of the troopers make it out alive at least. It's just important to make sure you help everyone live at the end instead of making a mad dash to the ship. But the mad dash is going to be most of your games, and it's just always hilarious. But if you really want to level up fast, Hunter and Operator just get so much support EXP, and it's definitely the most consistent way between like reviving people and even more from just resupplying people with ammo. So that definitely gives them a big advantage and makes them just feel way smoother, because Bastion only gets his heal thing at like level 20, and at that point you really don't need EXP anymore unless they expand into more in the future, but it's just too slow and really annoying unless someone is feeding you ammo, and kind of forces you to either have a rocket launcher or play on that lower difficulty to one-shot most of the bugs for EXP. And even though there's only one area for missions, it can feel fresh even after playing a bunch of games, but if you've played, you know the ore refinery objective can just be ridiculously slow if one gets blown up. The downtime is really punishing, while the other things are just so easy. It's like go repair the thing and grab a rocket launcher. The refinery doesn't really give you anything special, but there is always three to defend. And I've been in a lot of games where people will just camp one. And if you only use one refinery, you're going to be there for like 20 minutes and everybody's just going to fall asleep. But that does get solved with some playtime, knowing that there is three and that you do have to spread out for them. I do hope they expand on the missions in the future. And there is a bunch of like side areas to go into. So they did set everything up to do side quests. They're just not in the game yet. And I'm just really happy with the overall movie vibe. They really captured it, and I do want to see what they have in store for the future. Because if this is just the beginning, it's going to end up being something really special. And another thing is, I'm okay with the bug diversity right now being pretty limited because it is early access. Once they do start expanding on the bug types and we end up going to hunt like brain bugs or getting attacked by like the big tanker bugs that are shooting the flamethrowers, the flying guys are coming in, it's going to make it even more chaotic, and I really can't wait to see it. But now I do have to talk about some issues I have with the game because I've just been given to W's, and my biggest issue right now is crashing. They released it as early access, but didn't give you a spot reserve in the lobby when you get yeeted out of it. People are crashing enough that having a reserved slot for at least a couple of minutes, giving you that grace period to get back in before it gets backfilled, really needs to be a thing, because it feels terrible to crash at the end of the mission, just not get anything for it. And this is only going to get worse and frustrate more people as time goes on. And you really do get that early access feeling sometimes when you see the bugs falling from the sky, flying around. But it also gives you like the cheesy movie vibe, so I think that's okay. The real problem is when you get revived in a weird spot, sometimes you just end up skating around like this until you go down and get back up. And usually you can just redeploy if something like this happens. But if it's at the end of the mission on the run to the dropship, then you have to get to revive to escape whatever hell this is. So I'd love to see an unstuck button that just reseats your character where you're standing for now. I think it would help even more on the ARC game mode when you're in the middle of nowhere and just get stuck in something random. It would just be great to not have to redeploy and start all over again from the beginning. I also started avoiding the ARC mission without at least 4 people in my party because it can be just ridiculously slow and turn into a slog where the bugs can't even attrition kill your base even on the hardest difficulty. And if you have bad RNG, the gas can be so far away that it just takes too much time to run with it all. And with the bugs mostly one-shotting you, there ends up being a ton of failed missions across the map just to get some gas. I'll assume it's going to get better when we get some vehicles and stuff, but overall the game mode right now just feels too slow and really just RNG whether it's going to be fun or not. And one other thing to say about the ARC mode is it does just feel way too easy overall. We don't even have a base in our base in this one because some of the bug sympathizers wanted out, and I don't blame them. It was just so easy that we ended up winning. It just ended up taking an hour. So I think it needs to be a bit more swarmy for what it is personally. And that's another key issue that I do have is some of the missions feel way too easy compared to other ones. Like sometimes it's just a chaotic swarm. It's always a mess. It gives you those movie moments and it just feels amazing to play because it's so stressful. But sometimes you just don't get that at all. And I'm not really too sure what that inconsistency is because it's definitely not a difficulty thing. I've been trying all three, and sometimes even the easiest mode gets a ridiculous amount of bugs. And that also isn't helped by some of the outposts being way too gimmicky. The prefab buildings being invincible make it feel like you're not actually building a base and more just setting up chokes. So I'd love to see the map extended to not always end right in the middle and let us really take control of building the base and just let us build the entire thing. And I hope to see that out of the Horde mode that's not in yet. I don't take it as a huge negative that the Horde mode isn't in, but after experiencing some of the chaos the game can really throw at you, I think it's going to end up being one of my favorite things just to go play, especially if they let us do an entirely player-built base. But it is probably going to nuke performance if there's too much happening at once, so I hope they find a way to get a ridiculous amount of warrior bugs on the screen without killing your FPS too much. So it really is a toss-up if the game runs good or bad for you. For me, it's been running pretty good, capped at 60 FPS. Over that, it does get a little bit unstable, but I know a lot of people with 40 series cards are having a ton of problems and spam crashing. I crash a lot too. I do think the performance issues will be sorted out over time, especially once they start porting into Unreal 5. But for now, like any EA game, it's always going to be a dice roll whether it's going to work on your machine or not. But to give it credit for all the chaos that does happen on your screen sometimes, there is a ridiculous amount of things that pop in. And I expected it to run a lot worse than it does. It actually is performing pretty well. And now one of the last things I want to talk about are loadouts. They are on their first stage, but it looks like we'll be able to get a lot more weapons in the future. So that is going to be good. And I hope that the quartermaster lets us add like attachments like a shotgun or a noob tube to the bottom of our weapons, maybe some more scope options or something, or let us load out with a marauder suit or a tank. Usually I don't like seeing these grayed out tabs at all, but since it is an early access game and it is the people who made Squad, I am 50-50 on it. It is just something that I've recently experienced in Darktide. that really just ended up being a complete disaster. So that's why if they do give us a preview of what they will be with the roadmap, or at least the first iteration of it, that would go a long way for me personally. And something that's like super nitpicky and isn't really a big negative, more of just a personal preference, is procedural or staged reloading. After playing a ton of darktide, this is something I really do love. And any game that you play where you have this just feels ridiculously good, and it makes a ton of sense, especially for how simple these guns are and with how chaotic the fights get. It would just make the gameplay feel way better. But I do think the animations, at least for the reloads, are solid because the troopers actually do look really cool. So overall, it really did make me feel like I was part of this first Starship Troopers movie, and that was basically one of my favorite movies of all time. So I have a really big bias towards it, and having a bunch of people RP about it is just everything I could have asked for. And everyone working together for better or worse. I really think this could turn into something special once it is finished. And even though it's early access, so is Squad. And I already think this is something special that you can enjoy. For me, I think it's worth giving them a chance. And I definitely think it's worth $25. I've already gotten my dollar to hour playtime out of it. And I think anybody who buys it will too. But if you don't like early access games, I would definitely hold off. There are a couple of bugs that just might ruin it for you. And more importantly, more than anything else, if you're a solo player that doesn't like interacting with other people, stay away from this one. It is very squatty. But that's personally one of my main draws, is getting a ton of friends or people from the community together, or even just playing random games. Every single time I queue up, it's always something ridiculous, and I've just been having a ridiculous amount of fun with everyone. So I'd love to know what you troopers think about it. I've got a couple more streams of it coming up, and the alt channel has some raw gameplay videos of the builds I use. So if you want to check out more than just this a review, all that stuff is linked in the description for you. And that's going to be all for now. So I hope you all have a great night.